Now, I'm prepping this surface. What I've done is I've hit this with 2 coats of all-purpose sealer, and now I'm going to apply a texture Fiero, which is a metallic texture medium, to this surface. I'm going to use a broad blade palette knife, and I'm going to put on a very, very thin coat of this medium. You don't want it too thick, because we don't want a rough surface to paint on, but we do want to create a little bit of surface texture. So, nice light touch, very thin application. Stuff is really easy to move around, so you don't have to work hard to get it on. Now, ideally, you should put this on in a random fashion. I like a crosshatch method. But because I'm going to put a secondary texture on top of this, it really doesn't matter if it's put on in a meticulous fashion. So, I'm going to get a dirty palette, and now I'm going to drag the flat of the blade across the surface, and I'm just leaving behind some very thin pockets of texture. I'm going to knock it down a little bit so that it's not a rough surface. There we go. You're noticing that I'm pulling this on the diagonal so that I don't create any set pattern. And I think this should do us. So, I'm going to come back in a little bit. Once this is dry, we'll do the sides and the edges, and then we'll be ready to paint. Hi, I'm back again. This time we're going to be doing 3 separate floral studies on a metallic background using the Salsa from Dynasty Duets. So I've got these already prepped. We're going to work with the basic palette of the Traditions paints, white, red, blue, green, yellow, and a little raw sienna, and we'll be back in a very short while to show you how it's done. Okay, to get started on our tulip here, we're going to have to make a little bit of a shadow, so I'm going to pull a little bit of this phthalo green, and I need to darken it up a little bit, so I'm going to pull a little, I want sort of a little bit of a khaki color here, not so much of a jewel tone, so a little more sienna, and I'm going to dumb it down a little. And I'm going to pop some shadows in. I'm using the flat shader. And I'm just going to pop a couple of shadows in a few key points, just so that you start to see the shape of this tulip start. So come back, pick up a little of this, I'll tuck that in. Now I've picked up a little bit of glaze. All that does is just keep the color moving a little bit and allow me to blend it out. Anytime you add glaze to paint, it just makes it a little more transparent. It gives you the ability to extend it a little bit. One more little spot here, I want to pop it in. And you can see that this tulip is starting to take shape. And we haven't even started painting the flower yet. This is just getting a few key shadows in. Just like that. I want to clean out the brush. Now, on the opposite end of this flat shader is a pointed filbert. And this is a terrific brush for doing some of the detail. Now, I'm just going to shape this tulip at this point. So I'm going to start here on the point of this one, and I'm going to start pulling some color down. You notice I'm following the shape, the way that the tulip bends. Let the color run out on the other edge. Now, by doing it this way, it creates the flow without having to add any shadows. but it also helps you create a little texture on the edge of the petals. I'm going to pull around from the other side, and we've got our first petal created. That's simple. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the inside petal. And I'm always pulling back to an imaginary vein that runs up the center of the petal. And you can see how the stroke is being pulled that way. This double-ended brush is very handy because I can switch back to the shader at any time, like I have here, because I want to pull in just in here a little bit. And then come back and start shaping this petal some more. Always pulling towards that imaginary center line. Now I'm going to come over to the other side of the petal and do the same thing. Now I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap at the edge of the other petal. And I'm always pulling that stroke back towards that imaginary center line. Just like that. We'll be right back.
Ready to go? I'm back. I'm going to finish out this flower with a few little highlights on the tips of the petals using that fountain brush. Just to punch them up a little, and I'm keeping the stroke short so that the highlight is only at the tip of the petal. Just like that. Quick and easy, or fast and dirty. Just like that. I'm going to rinse out the brush. Now, I want to pull a little bit of this pink in like we did with the Lotus Blossom. I'm going to pull a little bit, just weak in here, just to put a little warmth in these petals. Very light. We don't need a lot of color. Now I'm going to come back with the angle brush, a little bit of that green mixed with the raw sienna. Not too much because I want to keep that dark color, and I'm going to add a shadow to the back side of the stem, and I'm going to pull a little of that color up into the base of the petals. Just a little. I'll rinse out my brush, and just with a little bit of glaze and a little bit of water, I'm going to diffuse that green just a little bit so that it's not quite as strong. A little bit of yellow. I'll punch up that highlight on the stem. I'm going to deepen that shadow in here. A little of that green. And I'll take my angled brush, a little bit of white paint, stand it on its point, find my name, and that is White Poppies on a textured background with the Dynasty Duets.